Good to see you.
Good to see you. How are you?
Good, good. Where are you today?
Stockholm?
Nice. That's great. Okay, we'll just wait another minute for some more folks to join us. Hi, Nadia. Hi, Miles.
Hi, Adria.
Great to see you.
Good to see you too. We have 15 people on, so
Okay. Okay, so let's get started. Brenda, have you started recording?
Yeah, for me it has started recording. Did you
Okay.
get any notification?
Yes. Okay. I
Okay.
think we're ready to start. So thank you guys so much for joining, and I'm very excited today to introduce you to Marie-Noëlle Keijzer. I'm going to butcher her name. And also, I would love to introduce you to Steven Buyse, while my dog is freaking out in the background. And one second, guys, hold on. My dog is having a conniption fit.
Never the good moment when your dog starts barking, probably in an important call or something.
That's true.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
I'm
Sorry,
good, thank
guys.
you.
Caesar was losing his marbles.
Okay.
Anyway, we will get started now. Okay. So thank you so much for joining us. And Marie, I'll give you a little bit of background on who she is. She is the CEO and co-founder of WeForest, an international non-for-profit working with communities in overlooked regions to address climate change, water scarcity, biodiversity loss, and poverty. After nearly 2 decades in senior roles at major French and US corporations, she's chosen to align her career with her life's purpose, co-founding WeForest in 2009. Since then, she has dedicated herself to delivering lasting, meaningful change. She's also a member of the World Economic Forum, the I1T.org Advisory Council, and active voice in global coalitions. She's passionate about collaboration. She welcomes opportunities to connect with entrepreneurs and changemakers globally. So thank you, Marie, for joining us. And also, we're also joined by Steve Buyse. Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
That's fine.
Is that good? Okay. He has his own family office, through which he invests in a wide range of industrial and tech companies, as well as buyout and venture capital funds. He's also a managing partner at CVC Capital, one of the largest and most successful private equity firms in the world, with 200 billion in assets under management. For the past 10 years, Stephen has also dedicated his money and energy to helping save the planet by reforesting regions south of the Sahara, an effort aimed at halting desertification and reducing the pressure that forces people to emigrate from their home countries. That's incredible. So we'll start with Marie. So we'll break up this hour and do a presentation with Marie, and then we will go to Steve, and then we'll do an open Q&A with some of the family offices that are joining us today. So Marie, without further ado, would you like to show us your presentation?
Yes, thank you, Adria. Are you seeing my slide, the first one?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. So welcome, everyone. I'm not seeing you all, but I know there are some familiar faces in the group. So looking forward to catching up at a later stage with some of you. My point today is about hope, which is actually a very unusual combination. Global warming and hope, normally these words don't go together, but I'm going to try to show the good side of things today. And so the history, I mean, Adria already introduced me a little bit. I co-founded WeForest 15 years ago, which actually has become today the biggest NGO doing reforestation, the biggest Belgian NGO doing reforestation. And so that was 15 years ago. 11 years ago, we published a book which was forwarded by Desmond Tutu. And the book was obviously about forests. And what Desmond Tutu wrote in his foreword was, forest loss is not irreversible. It just takes each of us to act in unity. And this is the call to action that I have today. And I will give you some scientific backing for this. And the science is helping us today as well to stay hopeful, because recent science by NASA and by other scientists is showing that maybe the task in front of us to reverse global warming with forests is not as big as we initially thought. So this is really the core of my message today, and I will dive into this a little further. But before that, I'd like to share something about WeForest briefly. What is an NGO like WeForest able to do when we start addressing the reforestation in tropical regions? We have raised in the last 15 years $60 million, which has helped us plant and grow over 100 million trees in tropical countries in overlooked regions of the world in Africa and Latin America, which actually represents in hectares and the landscape that we influence the size of Belgium. The trees that we have planted have sequestered and are sequestering the equivalent of all the cars in London for an entire year. So it is a significant impact that we've been able to reach in the last 15 years. Very important as well is that we have to take care of the communities that live in the countries that we restore. If we don't do that, the trees will be cut in the future. As soon as we grow them, they will be cut again. So we have to find alternative sources of livelihoods. And we can count that we have already improved the lives and the livelihoods of over 600,000 people. That's around 100,000 families in the countries where we work. And for that reason, we have received in 2021 the prize from Mother Teresa for social justice. And we're very proud of that. So we are a reforestation NGO, but we receive a prize for social justice, which says a lot about the need to combine those two. The companies that we have worked with are numerous, and we are actually one of the few NGOs that has worked with so many corporate funders. We count 500 partners already to date, 450 corporate, you see the names here, and around 50 philanthropists and foundations. And obviously a lot of them are still working with us, like Deloitte, like Nike, Shopify, and the others. Now let me talk about trees, the magic power of trees, because trees are really cool. I'm going to try not to be too technical, but I want you to bear with me because this is really the core of the message. And if you find it interesting, the science behind the climate dynamics of trees, I'm very happy to schedule a more scientific session in the future. So bear with me, I'm going to try to stay high level. Trees in their role for climate play in different ways. They are carbon and they are water. So that's what trees bring to the climate dynamics. Carbon, I think most of you know, 50% of a tree biomass is sequestered carbon, or 50% of the table that you are working on, or maybe the furniture that you have. That's the carbon sequestration. And there's not only carbon in the trees, there is carbon in the soil of the forest. So the carbon storage, the carbon element is fundamental in the role of trees and in how they regulate the climate. And this is the focus that the specialists, the IPCC experts have always focused on. And this is how we make the projections for global warming based on the carbon. This is fascinating, but it's not the whole picture. There's a whole side of the climate dynamics that is most of the time overlooked. Why is it overlooked? Because it's very complex, it's very local, and it changes all the time. It's not permanent like carbon. Let me give you a little taste, a little flavor of this. So this is the second bullet here, which is forests regulate the water cycle via energy and heat transfer. And trees do that in 3 different ways. Evapotranspiration, which you probably already heard of, cloud formation, and the biotic pump. I'll just give a very small description of this. Evapotranspiration is that the trees absorb water and release moisture into the atmosphere. And they do that via the tree leaves. And a tree in the tropical regions can actually transpire hundreds of liters a day. That's the first contribution of trees in climate cooling and climate dynamics. The second is the clouds. Trees actually make clouds. If you don't have trees, you can't make clouds. They make the water vapor, but they also seed the clouds, emitting particles and bacteria that seed those clouds. And why are clouds super important in the climate dynamics? Well, first, as you can imagine, low clouds, I'm speaking about low altitude clouds, they reflect the sun heat, like they create a high albedo, which is obviously cooling the planet. You know that, right? If you're standing under a cloud, it's cooler than it is without the cloud. The second aspect is they cause rainfall, which also has a cooling effect and then also feeds the watersheds for us to leverage the water. So cloud formation is super important. And the last one, which is almost known by nobody, is that if you have forest along the coastline of an ocean, for example, big enough forest, that forest will draw the moisture from the ocean on the land, which is called the biotic pump. So basically, if we had a wide forest along the side of California or the coast of Spain, we would draw regular rainfall, steady rainfall, and moisture into the land, and it would prevent those regions to become a desert. So here's the summary of the carbon and the water. Those two cycles actually are closely linked, and we know there is a feedback loop between the two. One feeds the other. Today, unfortunately, we are in a negative feedback loop. We're losing, and we're losing very much. And this is why when IPCC says we're going to try to stay under 1.5 degrees by 2050, 25 years ahead of schedule, we are already at 1.5 degrees warmer. That's why, because the models are not correctly factoring the water cycle in their analysis today. Let me give you, without becoming too detailed, an example of how this feedback loop works against us today, but it could start working for us if we decide to. So the world is warmer, you know, because we have more CO2 in the atmosphere. We have a carbon pollution of 20%, right? So we have too much CO2, the world is warmer. Because it's warmer, we have more water vapor. That's a chemical process. And water vapor is a very powerful greenhouse gas, and that creates more heat. So we are in this vicious circle of more heat, more water vapor, and therefore more heat. To give you an idea, a planet warmer by 1 degree Celsius stores 7% more water vapor. So guess what's happening in Europe, where we are already 2.4 degrees warmer than pre-industrial time. We have to manage 17% additional water vapor floating around in Europe and then falling at some point on us in quite catastrophic situations. So this is the reality today of the carbon and the water cycle. So you probably wonder, okay, I was going to talk about good news, about hope. Where's that? When is that coming? Well, it's coming. The key message at this point is, if it's playing against us faster than it should because of the water cycle, it could also play for us faster than it does today. And the interesting part is that where carbon takes decades to be sequestered, like trees take decades to really get to their full potential on carbon, on the water cycle, the trees have a direct impact. As soon as you start reforesting, you have an impact, and it's very short term and it's very big. So that is the positive news on this one. The I'm going to show you two examples which will explain what I mean by the negative feedback loop, which we actually should call chaos. Remember Valencia in October 2024? In 8 hours, the city received the equivalent of a full year of rain. The soils were totally hard because deforested and degraded, so it washed everything away. Remember, 95 people died, it displaced 15,000 people, and the economic losses are huge. And for the next few years, they will be cleaning this mess. That's Valencia last year. Remember Los Angeles, closer to some of you based in the US. Los Angeles is a little different model, but still showing the alternation between heavy rains, drought, and fires. 3 years in a row, we had excessive rain in, say, in the region of Los Angeles, in Orange County. And then the vegetation grew much more than normally, because obviously 3 years of rain creates a lot of vegetation. And then there was a drought, and that huge vegetation dried. And so when the fires came, it destroyed everything. I guess I don't have to list the catastrophe that was in Los Angeles at the beginning of this year. It's just amazing, right? We lost 57,000 acres, and the cost to insurances and to people living there was exceeding $100 billion. So that's what's arriving to us in the south of France. It happened again last week. It's happening all the time, and there's a very clear explanation. It's the water cycle. But the positive news is coming now. By restoring the forest, we can fix the climate system. It's broken today, but it's easy to fix. We know how to do that, and we're already doing it, but not fast enough. Let me tell you two statistics that will explain what I mean by, there is hope here. We have always known that forests were responsible for up to 20% of global warming. So deforestation was causing 20% of the global warming, the rest being the excess use of fossil fuels. NASA has published in 2022 a very important document explaining that we have overlooked the water cycle in our models, and actually the water cycle is doubling the role of forest in climate dynamics. That means from 20% that can be resolved by reforestation or by stopping deforestation, we're up to 40%. So if we take care of a forest, if we restore a forest and stop degradation, we can already address 40% of global warming. That's huge. And so the question is, can we do it? Well, as I said before, we thought we had to reforest the equivalent of the United States with 1 trillion trees in order to reduce global temperature by 1 degree Celsius. With this new work by NASA and other work by other water scientists, it is possible that maybe we're talking half of it or even a third of it, which makes it much more accessible. So those scientists are saying, possibly if we stop deforestation and only restore 330 billion trees or plant 330 billion trees, which is a third of the United States in surface, we could really mitigate significantly and reverse global warming. So this gives us hope because it is obviously much more accessible than 3 times that volume that we had initially expected. I want to add some more good news as well. Deforestation is always a big problem. The good news is it had peaked in the 1980s. So we are still deforesting too much, but it is less than before. And so that is encouraging. There is technology today to help us address illegal deforestation faster and better than before. We have all those drones, satellites, we can watch that, and we can do a better job. There's also plenty of degraded land in the tropics that is just needing and waiting to be restored without having to displace people or to stop agriculture. It's just useless land as it is, and it needs to be restored. And the cost of it is obviously much less than anticipated initially. And the numbers show that if all the insurances together every year spend $140 billion on mitigating or repairing, the damages caused by global warming, 11% of this would be enough to take care of our climate. So it's crazy that we are spending so much on insurance costs where actually we know the solution and we know we can afford it. And so my last point here, and I'll try to keep it short, I have 2 slides to go. This is you participating in this webinar, and thank you for attending. You probably wonder, well, this is so simple. We have to do something, and we want to do something. You run organizations, you have big networks, you have maybe philanthropic organizations, corporate organizations. You can do something about it. There's many organizations that do the work that we do, and Steven is going to talk about one of them, like WeForest and many other peers that we work with. So there's different ways you can act. You can do philanthropic contribution. Why is philanthropy so important? I just shared with you that we're one of the few NGOs that has worked with so many corporates. We know that corporates want to fund something that is already up and running. They want to see, okay, what am I contributing to? Because they want to share with their clients and they want to share with their employees. So counting on the corporates to fund the piloting and the de-risking of projects is not a good idea. We need philanthropy for that. So this is where philanthropists have a huge role to scale this movement. Then corporates come in and they do CSR, they do branding campaigns, like we've done so many with Nike and other brands. They do employee engagement, like Steve is going to explain, amazing, where you get all your employees super enthusiastic about making a difference in the world, and supply chain consolidation. So that's what corporates can do. And then there's even opportunities for investors in carbon schemes. So there's different ways that everybody can contribute. And so this is my invitation today. Reach out to us, to Steven and myself, and see how we can guide you to the organization that would fit your needs. And the concluding remark is that we've been speaking a lot about climate here today. Climate is not the only solution that forests provide. They are just miracle beings, they are just amazing. You know that we have an issue with biodiversity. Well, forests happen to resolve or to be responsible for 80% of the global biodiversity. So this is a very important aspect to consider. They help us with soil preservation and prevent erosion. With air quality, the air we breathe is filtered and cleansed by the trees. They help with sustainable economies, helping people live with dignities in the remote countries, like in Africa, where Steve is going to also mention something. We want people to live there and to live well, so they don't have to migrate. And we can do that with the projects that we develop. Obviously, disaster prevention, health and medicine, everything is coming from the forest. So obviously trees grow slowly. And so you might not see your forest immediately, but your children will. And this is what I invite you to think about. So thank you very much, and I look forward to some questions.
Thanks, Marie-Noëlle. Appreciate it. Before we go on to Steve, does anybody have a quick question? Because we'll do a Q&A at the end as well. Crickets, anyone before we go on?
Hi, this is Yvonne. No question. It's just a perfect example of how simple the solution is and just requires collaborative efforts and awareness. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Yvonne. Really appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you guys have any ideas also, around impact in this space, please reach out to Marie-Noëlle. There's a lot of things that you can do to contribute. Introductions, we could raise funds and create, programs for her. There's a lot that volunteers can do just outside of straight donations. However, that helps a lot. So, any other comments? Otherwise, I would like to introduce Steve.
I just want to say amazing the work you're doing, Marie. Hi, this is Adam here, Adam Morse from London.
Adam.
Yeah, hi, yeah, I'm really interested to talk to you more about what you're doing and how I can support. Yeah, there's potentially some synergy with a film that we have in South America that is to try and raise awareness for deforestation and what's happening in the Amazon because of a fellow blind brother of mine who was blind from birth and memorized over 3,000 bird songs by ear by the time he was 12, and now he's a grown man. He rides a donkey out into the into the wild every day to record these bird sounds of endangered birds that are disappearing every year, going extinct, because of the deforestation. And so, yeah, there could be some crossover there, maybe, but we can explore offline.
Yeah, indeed, and that's the advantage, Adam. And I look forward to us speaking on Friday. The advantage is that with forests, you can really reach to everybody. Some people are more sensitive to the biodiversity, and seeing animals, species disappear is unbearable, and others are very sensitive to the human well-being, and all of that is available with trees. So hopefully we can do something great with your movies. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I know it's something that Juan Pablo, he's, like you say, it's heartbreaking for him to, return to the same place, and he can't hear the same birds again. And then next thing you know, they've gone from endangered to gone extinct, and it's happening every year. And so, to work together would be an absolute joy, and to do something about this cause, because it's so important for so many reasons. Like you say, not just the biodiversity that's a threat, but the planet itself and us humans as well. It's like it's like the lungs of Earth, the Amazon. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's so important. And I'll just make a quick comment. I used to live in Southeast Asia for 10 years, and every year we would have a season called the haze, where they would do slash and burn and basically just burn down the jungles to plant crops. But this created a lot of destruction, and we would literally have to wear a face mask for about, 2 months. Like, even I remember one time going to the kitchen and I couldn't even see across the room because there was so much smoke in my house, but you just get used to it. Yeah, I don't probably have a lot of lung damage from it because it was 10 years of this, but people become complacent, I think, also. In emerging American countries, they get used to it because they feel helpless. Like, there's like, oh, what am I going to do about it? So anyway, we can do something about it, and it's very important, and that's why we do the work that we do at the Vine. So, okay, so Steve, thank you so much for joining us. It's the first time we're meeting. Thank you for participating in this webinar, and I'd like to learn about you. If you have a presentation you'd like to share, please go ahead.
Yeah, well, I only have one slide. I believe in the power of one slide.
Are you seeing the slide? Are you seeing the slide now?
Yes. Yeah, I see it. Do you guys see it?
A bit of background. So I'm a managing partner at one of the bigger private equity funds globally, and I'm responsible for a region, Benelux, but also for chemicals globally. There I'm heavily involved with all the issues of climate and protecting nature and doing good for the planet, which is required by our investors, which are most often pension funds and insurance companies. So we comply to SBTi targets, and we try to embed these green actions in all the companies we're invested in. And we believe in that and to have impact. And we think that also then the business become better, better quality, more valuable, and that you create value when then listing them or selling them, which then these businesses can grow further. And whilst being, let's say, active within my industry, I, of course, got more and more involved into this topic. As a person also, I like to travel. I like to travel and bring along my family. I like nature, and that's why, as the last 30 years, we traveled around the whole globe. We didn't go to the fancy five-star hotels, but we always tried to visit regions and encounter, let's say, call it real people, and sleep in, let's say, with locals, and really get the true story of what is happening, the opportunities, the hope, but also sometimes you see things happening, drought, nature that is vanishing, and that, of course, that creates, let's say, a call for action. What I saw was my father was a doctor. He was active in entrepreneurs and Doctors Without Frontiers. So he went to Africa from time to time to do surgery and to help there. And I thought that in the business world, relatively speaking, there are less people going to more remote areas to feel and see what is really happening. So with the organization that I'm chairing, Entrepreneurs Without Frontiers, I started to connect the business community with the challenge of reforestation that Marie-Noëlle is supporting, and saying, look, we developed a platform, a sports platform, where employees can do sports, and per kilometer that they are doing sports, they can plant digitally 1 tree. And then by planting these trees, let's say if they then get to a number of 5,000 or 10,000 trees, then de facto you're creating, reducing CO2, you're creating CO2 rights, and that then can be taken by the company to integrate it in their own ESG reporting. And it's the companies who are sponsoring that program, and you have a double win, a triple win. In fact, you have a win for the employees, they get fitter. You have a win for the company because somebody who is fitter, he works better. He is also happier. And 3, it's also good for the planet, because then the employee really sees the impact of what he was doing, walking 10 kilometers, running or swimming, and they really see an impact in Africa. And what I then did is that I brought the business leaders of companies, CEOs, CFOs, but also leaders of family offices, invited them to come to Africa and to cycle there, to do sports, and to really feel the heat and see the challenges. And that's what is super important, that it's only you get even more motivated and an ambassador like Marie-Noëlle is if you go over there in these countries and you talk with the local people and you see the impact. It's like a bulldozer going over you and you get crushed, but then you stand up again and then you really feel the need to do something. And when you see the impact of what you're doing in planting trees, and we also planted already millions of trees, is that you see a lot of happy faces. And that's also what we can learn. And the top people of these companies, that they see the happiness of these people with small things, small impacts, how you can change their world, and then you come back as a happier person. And that's also when I talk to family offices, some of these big millionaire, billionaire creators of companies, they say, Steven, yeah, my children, second generation, I see your children, and well, how come that? And I said, yeah, but did you ever take them along to Africa? Did you ever go into Namibia, into Senegal, into some remote areas, and you visited and you planted with local school communities? Yeah, how do you do that? Well, just pick up the phone, call the embassies, connect with some charities like Marie-Noëlle is leading, and then you can integrate it into the way you are living as a family, but also in the way you operate within a business, so that also you can connect all the employees in those companies, that those people think, oh my God, what can I do? There's no hope. And Marie-Noëlle saying, it doesn't really have an impact. And if I give money to a big organization, they're going to use it, and a lot of expats, and nothing really will not have an impact. If you look at the slide of what we're doing, we try to really involve the companies, the employees, and then doing that with a digital platform, so that if people do sports via Garmin, it gets connected, and you really get a positive flying wheel, that without them doing too much, they really feel impact. that they are really digitally planting. They have an impact as a company, and then some of their employees, when they do a contest of who has done most kilometer, whatever, these people get elected then to come with us and visit and cycle and visit the projects in Africa. And that creates a whole different dynamic within a company or within a family office. What I had now the last time around, children of the second, third generation joining us, and that you saw that these people, all of a sudden, it was the first time that they were in Africa in very remote areas, and they told me, Steven, yeah, this has changed my way of thinking. Really, thank you. And they go back in another spirit, and they also have, and I hope they will also become an ambassador for the good cause. So that's what I try to preach in companies where we as a private equity are invested in. What I do with fellow companies or friends of mine who are owner or running companies, and also what I'm saying to employees, but also what I'm doing within my family, because I see that as one big ecosystem. So voilà, that is a summary of what I try to do. So I don't know if that gives a good picture or if it triggered a lot of questions.
No, that's fantastic. So I just want to see if anybody has any questions. I do, but you
I
guys
do.
have anything you want to share? Yeah, go ahead.
I do have questions actually for you, Steve, and also you, Marie. First, I want to say thank you very much for your presentations. My name is Sharina. I'm with Utopia Plastics. We are centrally focused on the impact of our environment, especially in the areas that you've expressed interest. Since you just concluded, Steve, I have a question around, I myself have been in areas like Kisumu, Kenya, and planted. And one of the things that I found while visiting there, and we were focused on environmental outcomes and impacts in local communities. But one thing, water scarcity is significant in that area. And then, of course, areas that are plagued by drought. How do you all address when you're talking about what then becomes the solution in those regions? I understand the cycling and around raising awareness. What becomes the end result in those areas once the engagement is there to address those issues of water scarcity that would then provide sustainable long-term outcomes to improve health and wealth, health in the communities, economic opportunity as well.
Steve, do you want me to start? Or you want to
Yeah,
start?
Marie-Noëlle,
Yeah.
please go ahead.
So actually, one of the projects that Steve supports, and one of our biggest projects is located in the Great Green Wall of Africa, which is the planting strategy to stop the evolution of the Sahara Desert. So in northern Ethiopia and in Senegal as well, but in northern Ethiopia, we have our biggest project, which is 38,000 hectares, which is now becoming a desert. And the picture you're seeing behind me is from that place. It is like really becoming desert. It's in the highlands. And so indeed, the objective is to bring water back and to also retain the water, because it does rain in those areas. Even it rains, in the Sahel, it doesn't rain much. So what we do in this location specifically is with the local people, we dig holes. So when it rains, it retains all the water, and then you plant a tree there and it germinates, and then it becomes robust, and then it thrives. We do that. We also invest a lot of our funding, not just in forestry, but in also consolidating riverbeds, because when it rains a lot. And because soil is eroded, it washes everything away. So you consolidate with stones and wires, mesh wires, in the river, so you retain the water. So there's a whole strategy around collecting the little rain there is and making the best out of it so that you can bring vegetation back. And once the vegetation is back, it brings rain back. But somewhere you got to start. And probably, Steve, maybe if you want to explain with the half moons that you do in
the half moons,
Sahel.
the Valerian technique is we make kind of holes with a kind of in a rounded form, deep, They call it the half moons or the Valerian technique. And that's very effective in keeping water in that hole with then what you've planted, and then gives a chance that then that tree is popping up. The other thing which is very important, Sharina, is that you involve the local population, and that part of the proceeds of what we raise go to the local population that are protecting the forest, and we put fences around it. We invest in fences, and then these people are confronted with, let's say, the local tribes that can migrate through the borders, because we have drawn borders in the colonial times, but they, let's say, these tribes, they move around, and they have goats, and you need to keep the goats out, because if the goats are there, they are not taking only the leaves, but they take the roots out. And so if these local people see on their phone technology, fantastic, that those trees bring them money, reward, then these people are motivated to protect their forests. And we see that our forests are growing because we have the buy-in of the local community, and that other forests that are planted by the European Investment Bank, and they are just put there, and nobody really knows from where are they coming, for who. Then people at a certain moment, if they have to cook and they have 15 children in their family, they're going to cut that tree. So once you get the accountability, these people are smart. If they see it gives them a revenue from the CO2 rights, that you allocate part of that money to them, they start to protect. And two, once the trees start to grow, then you have grass in between those trees that they can cut, and that they can use to feed their cattle or to sell. And then you get into a kind of a positive momentum. But it's very important that the local community sees that there's an immediate return, and that also that return, part of our return, goes to education, because you need to educate the children. And part of our project that we're now doing is in the schools, Sharina, where we have small plots of land where we let children plant a small forest and plant a small vegetable garden, which they have forgotten, in a mixed format, so that you don't need insecticides, etc., because you have citronella, and then they learn again how to do it. And once you train them, they also can eat from it. You invite the parents, and then the parents around your forest get trained again. And these people are fantastic people, but they didn't get the education. But once they get educated and they get motivated, you have a fantastic army of green warriors. It's amazing. Yeah. Sometimes we treat them as people that are not aware and they're against. No. Once they get it, they see the return, then you get the support from the local community, and you don't need hundreds of expats projects, because these people, we are also very much focusing on the women, the female, because the mothers, because they care a lot about education for the children and for the nature around. So that's another aspect which is super important, that you have that connect with the children within the family. And then you see great results. And then some of these children we recruit in our organization to then we give them a job. And then we have another company, another charity that finances capex, and that then allows the local people to buy a tractor so that they can do the holes and the pits that Marie-Noëlle was talking about. They can do it on their own, and then it becomes a small business for them, which is great, because then you start to create a microeconomic type of tissue next to the forest. And that is very important. So I fully understand your question. It's not all about the trees. It should have also an economic return. And people are smart, and with technology in Africa, wiring over on the phones, with the Tuaregs, they all have a phone. If you're in the desert, they all have this. And then in Europe or in the Americas, whatever, if the employees do sports and they see the impact of what they're doing, where the trees are planted, then you connect the dots.
Can I just add something to Sharina's question on water very specifically as well? Because, planting a little bit of trees won't make a difference in water. The scientists are saying if the minimum size of a forest in order to have a real impact on water is 10K by 10K, which is 10,000 hectares. So that is big, but it's possible to have a real impact on bringing water back. But it is, the kind of projects that we develop. So planting 50 trees in your garden, it won't bring the rains back, but will do other good things.
That Marie actually leads to my other question around soil health in those areas. And the reason I bring it up, Africa is a seed grow in various regions of Africa for us, mainly because our crops absorb carbon at 4 to 5 times the rate of trees. They're instrumental in removing heavy metals and restoring nutrients to the soil. So we're very intentional about that. They are indigenous to that region. So when we're looking at in these areas that have been impacted by severe deforestation or plagued with drought, what are you finding as regards soil health in those regions? And then are there any alternative methods that you're using or methods you're using to promote or restore soil health to advance your work?
That's a very good question, Sharina. Is sometimes indeed the conditions are so difficult that you can't plant just anything or what you'd like to. So you need to do a succession planning. For example, if you wanted to plant a fruit tree somewhere in agroforestry, you might have to start with other pioneer trees that would create shade, and then you can bring the fruit trees. So we always plant indigenous trees, but indeed you can't always start with what you want. It's a whole process and a real science. You're right. It's not just plant a tree.
That's right. Yeah, our crops we don't use any fertilizers or pesticides, so they grow very organically, almost like a weed. But we're also intentional about, you mentioned, Steve, about women. We understand also how widows are impacted, and often the land is taken in those regions, so giving them an opportunity for economic advancement. We're happy to say that some of our lead organizers for agriculture come out of that region, through Nigeria to the Congo to Ghana to Kenya are folks there. So thank you very much for the work that you are doing and paying attention. Also understanding how sub-Saharan Africa 2040 will have 20% of the world's population. So if we're not paying attention to what happens in that region, we're really missing it.
Yeah. And sometimes it is complex. Like in northern Namibia, we work together with a berry farm, which now gives a job to 3,500 people in an area where there were no jobs. But berry farms need bees, and the bees cannot only eat or go in there and only be exposed to the flowers of the berries. They need also other plants, and that's where we then planting around those berry farms the trees, and with then also their nestale for the honey, which then can be used by local population. So it is, the trees are there a solution with the bees to ensure that then the production gets pollinated, and the bees don't like to go into those production areas because they like to eat and go and fly around and have a kind of let's say a menu which is diversified. So it's all, you need to find everywhere solutions, but if you can have the combination from the ecological diversity, planting trees, and also creating jobs for people, then I think that at the end it is the best. And what I saw is that then also the entrepreneurs that I brought along, also the representatives of family offices, when they saw such a project with 3,000-4,000 people employed, I said, Steven, at last something more at scale and not planting 3 trees. And because they think a bit industrially, they want to, and of course you cannot copy paste everybody. They want to see a certain impact, and to the words of Marie-Noëlle, then they see also hope. They say, okay, there's a real industry coming here, and these people manage well their companies, and then they get comfortable to say, okay, fine, I will sponsor also your activity or charity, because I see real impact on different fronts, and not a kind of planting 10 trees here and there with no impact, and everybody feels good and drinks a glass of champagne and goes home. That's not what we want to achieve.
Absolutely.
Is there a question, or should I? Maybe Adria, you have some questions.
Yeah, no, I just want to see if there's anybody else that wants to make any comments or questions for you guys. And then also, guys, if you want to connect with both of them, I can give you their emails or connect you and make a group chat on WhatsApp or whatever, so you can continue the conversation more deeply. But in the meantime, does anyone have any comments?
There's no question. Maybe until the question comes, I would like to talk about the livelihoods and the women empowerment that you talked about, Sharina. And this is so fundamental for us. When I go to this Ethiopia project, which is behind me on screen, again, we work with 23,000 families there. And a lot of the young men are gone because they have emigrated. They're working in construction in Dubai or trying to come to Europe because there is nothing there. And what we're trying to do is bring dignity back. And what we start with women that are either widow, or the father is working abroad and she's alone with the children. So these women get priority. And we see that all these families, or most of these families live with $1 a day. That's below the poverty line today. $1 a day for the whole family. And with the support that we provide by giving a few chicken or giving a goat or two to every one of these women, they develop a business to have more chicken and goats. They eat better. The children eat protein, and they develop a little business. And we've measured the impact, and we see that most of them are able to double to $2 a day, which is huge. For us, it seems ridiculous. For them, it's huge to go from $1 a day to $2. So that's the measurement that we do based on all the livelihood schemes that we have. And every country, every project is different, but basically this is the one in northern Ethiopia.
Have you met Prince Ermias yet, Marie-Noëlle?
Who?
Prince Ermias of Ethiopia.
Yes, I have been in touch with Ermias Selassie indeed.
Good.
And I've actually written to him yesterday to make sure he would join us today. So I need to speak to him again. Yeah.
For sure. Okay, good. Just making sure, because he's in the group chat.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Until my AI system's done, I can't keep track of everyone.
Okay.
So are any more comments, thoughts, questions, guys? Crickets. Everyone's shy today. Maybe it's the beginning. It's after the long weekend, so everyone's still tired in the States.
If you're not sure what to do, follow Steven's advice. Ask your children. They will know what you should be doing for the environment.
That's a good point.
They're so committed. They are so engaged.
Yeah, but in which country you go, you might have business contacts. You might call the embassy and talk to somebody locally. And then, like I was in Nairobi and I visited downtown with former thieves, children that were thieves that were to survive, had to steal. And that was an association that converted those kids into guides. But again, immediately you get drawn into the local tissue of a country, and that's what I would advise, that you try to do a bit of effort, and very quickly you will discover different initiatives, and they have a huge impact on you as a person, but also on your children. And then, like Marie-Noëlle was saying, choose your one Calcutta, one, like Mother Teresa, one thing where you try to have impact, and don't let others say, "Oh, but Steven, doesn't matter." Oh, and you go to Africa with an airplane. Oh, CO2. Yeah, it's better to stay here. Please move. Do something yourself. Get involved. Involve your family or business, and then the energy will come from itself, and you will become a happier person. And then you can start to connect with these people, and then start to little by little investing charity money from your own funds, and then you will see, like Marie-Noëlle is saying, with small amounts you can have a huge impact. But it's not about only the financial impact, it's also the connection you're making, and it's only if you're there as a human being and you're confronted. If we have too many screens, too many, like we're now talking, we are not really seeing each other, but it's only when you're there that then that reality the bus goes over you, runs over you, and you understand, wow, we have a big issue. Is it drought? Is it forestation? Is it urbanization? That we need to do something. And voilà. So that's only my advice. And you will see that your children are like sponges. They will absorb. They will come back with new ideas. And the first time I went to Africa, I said, "Yeah, bring along some of your clothes in a." "Oh, Daddy, you saying this," and then the second time they did it on their own. That they understood. Last time we didn't have anything, and we didn't have an impact, and that's how you teach them. And what we can learn, for instance, from Africa, is the joy, the happiness to be really thankful and to talk to each other, which we've lost, let's say, in Europe and the Americas, where everybody walks next to each other on their phone and doesn't really care about each other. That's something where if I come back from Africa, I come back as a happier person.
That's beautiful, Steve. Thanks for sharing that. And that's incredible. And just, we have a growing community in the Vine in Africa, which we've been, I plan on going to Tanzania potentially later this year with some Vine members. So would love to know more about the work that you're doing, if it's in that region or in the Congo. Anyway, and also welcome to the Vine. So happy to connect you with the community. It's now 11,000 people across 70 countries. So it's pretty big. And very soon we'll have an AI system to manage our community. So you won't talk to me anymore. You'll talk to a robot. But the robot's quite smart and handsome and intelligent because I made him. So, but anyway, so I think that's it for today, guys, because we're closing in 1 minute. But I'm really delighted that both of you guys got to share your stories of impact. And more importantly, welcome to the Vine, Steve. So I'm happy to extend an invitation to connect you with anyone. It sounds like you travel a lot, and that's really what the community is about. So it's for people who are interested in cultural diplomacy. It's family offices, governments, and non-for-profits, all focused on impact. So thank you guys for your time. And
thank you for organizing this.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the great work you do.
Thank you.
Very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.